6 a.m. You've just hit snooze on your alarm, reaching for that first cup of coffee. But 20,000 years ago, your ancestors were already up at dawn, not to hurl spears at woolly mammoths, but to collect firewood? Today, we're shattering the club-wielding caveman myth forever. This is the reality of a day in the Paleolithic, an era that lasted 100 times longer than the span from the Egyptian pyramids to your iPhone. Today we're time traveling to discover what life was really like for our Stone Age ancestors. When we say cave people, we're talking about the Paleolithic period spanning from 2.6 million years ago to just 12,000 years ago. But here's the thing, this wasn't one monolithic culture. A Homo habilis in Tanzania 1.8 million years ago lived vastly differently from their Cro-Magnon relatives painting cave walls in Ice Age France. Think of it like comparing medieval peasants to modern New Yorkers, same species, completely different worlds. Climate was everything. During the Ice Age in North America, temperatures plummeted to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, colder than modern Alaska. But here's what might surprise you. They weren't isolated survivors scraping by alone. Evidence from the Galt site in Texas reveals obsidian blades that traveled over 800 miles from Wyoming, proof of extensive trade networks. These people operated what was essentially prehistoric Amazon, moving goods across vast distances through sophisticated social connections. And just this year, China announced the discovery of a 60,000 years old Paleolithic settlement, while new research from Morocco shows that 15,000 years old hunter-gatherers had a strong preference for plants in their diet, completely overturning our meat-heavy assumptions about Paleolithic nutrition. No alarm clocks needed. The sun was their GMT. But the first task wasn't stretching or checking social media. It was coaxing the fire back to life. At Terra Amata in France, archaeologists found 380,000 years old hearths, ancient kitchens that provided warmth, cooked food, and kept predators at bay. Imagine spending 30 minutes every morning just to get fire started. Our ancestors avoided this by banking coals overnight under ash, essentially creating the world's first Zippo lighter. Water collection was typically handled by women and children, carried back in leather pouches or hollowed gourds. A Cro-Magnon adult consumed about a gallon of water daily, roughly equivalent to those 8 glasses sitting on your office desk right now. But here's where it gets interesting. Recent analysis of Paleolithic dental calculus, that's fossilized plaque, reveals they weren't just drinking water. They were brewing herbal teas and medicinal drinks, showing sophisticated knowledge of plant chemistry that would make modern herbalists jealous. The morning routine also included weapon maintenance, spears needed resharpening, and tools required constant upkeep. This wasn't mindless busy work. Survival depended on having functional equipment ready at a moment's notice. Forget the Hollywood image of men charging off to battle mastodons while women stayed home. Evidence from Boxgrove, England, specifically a 500,000 years old horse skeleton with spear punctures, tells a different story. Hunting was a coordinated group effort requiring Navy SEAL level planning. The challenge? Wooden spears were only effective within 20 feet, about the length of a Ford F-150 truck. This meant getting dangerously close to animals that could easily kill you. Success required teamwork, strategy, and incredible courage. But here's the real kicker. Hunting provided only about 30% of their calories. The majority came from foraging, and this is where recent science gets really exciting. Analysis of 24 individuals from burial sites in Peru shows that early human diets were 80% plant matter and only 20% meat, far more plant-heavy than previously thought. Fossilized teeth from Cima de los Huesos in Spain preserve evidence of over 40 different plant species in their diet, from nuts and berries to medicinal leaves. Paleolithic women weren't just gatherers, they were walking botanical encyclopedias. They knew which plants were poisonous, which had medicinal properties, and how to process toxic foods like cassava by roasting to remove dangerous compounds. This knowledge represented thousands of years of accumulated wisdom passed down through generations. The morning foraging expedition typically covered 5-8 miles, with different family members specializing in different resources. Children learned by following adults, gradually building their own mental maps of seasonal food availability. Think your desk job is tedious? Try sitting cross-legged for 8 hours crafting stone tools. At Gunnersdorf, Germany, archaeologists uncovered over 1,000 bone needles and awls, evidence of systematic assembly line production. Creating a single Acheulean hand axe, those teardrop-shaped tools found across Africa and Europe, required over 100 precise strikes. The margin for error was razor thin. One wrong hit could shatter hours of work. This level of precision rivals modern diamond cutting, and they definitely weren't living in dark, cramped caves at Mezhyrich, Ukraine. People constructed elaborate shelters using 950 woolly mammoth bones, creating living spaces of 120 square feet, larger than the average American bedroom. Inside, they designated specific areas, cooking zones around hearths, workshop areas for tool making, and even entertainment spaces for storytelling and art. Recent excavations at similar sites reveal sophisticated organization. Different areas were designated for different activities: napping stones, preparing hides, food preparation, and social gatherings. They were essentially running prehistoric workshops with specialized workstations. The afternoon was also when they processed the morning's foraged materials. Nuts needed cracking, roots required cooking to remove toxins, and plant fibers had to be prepared for weaving. This processing work was communal, multiple families working together, sharing knowledge and techniques. Toolmaking wasn't just functional, it was artistic. Many Paleolithic tools show evidence of aesthetic considerations beyond pure utility. They cared about how things looked, not just how they worked. After 12 hours of work, they didn't collapse exhausted. Instead, they connected through music, art, and storytelling. A 40,000 years old bone flute from Hohlefels Cave in Germany could play musical scales comparable to modern recorders. This isn't primitive noise-making. This is sophisticated musical expression. Cave paintings weren't just doodles. They were prehistoric cinema. The famous running horses at Chauvet Cave in France create the illusion of movement when viewed by flickering firelight. These artists understood animation principles 30,000 years before Disney, but the evening social time served crucial survival functions too. This is when knowledge was transmitted, stories about successful hunts, warnings about dangerous areas, instructions for processing difficult foods. Every story was a survival manual passed through generations. Recent archaeological evidence suggests these gatherings included people from multiple groups. Genetic analysis shows that Paleolithic communities avoided inbreeding through complex social networks that brought together people from dozens of miles away. These weren't isolated tribes, they were part of sophisticated social networks. Music and dance weren't just entertainment, they were social bonding mechanisms that created group cohesion necessary for survival. Rhythmic activities released endorphins and created the kind of trust essential for dangerous cooperative activities like hunting large game. Ready for some mind-blowing facts that destroy every caveman stereotype. Medicine. The Romito 1 skeleton from Italy shows a man who lived with severe spinal paralysis for over 20 years. He survived only because his community cared for him, the earliest evidence of social welfare systems. Ecological engineering. Australian Aboriginals used controlled burning for 65,000 years, creating grasslands that attracted game animals. They were landscape architects millennia before Stonehenge was built. Superior nutrition analysis of Otzi the Iceman and other Paleolithic remains shows they ate 3 times more plant variety than early farmers. They weren't missing grains. They had access to nature's all-you-can-eat buffet. Advanced pharmacology. Neanderthal dental calculus contains traces of medicinal plants like chamomile and yarrow, evidence of deliberate self-medication. They were running prehistoric pharmacies. Surgical knowledge. A 31,000 years old skeleton from Borneo shows evidence of successful leg amputation, with the patient living for years afterward. This required surgical knowledge, anesthesia, and post-operative care. Mathematical thinking. Bone artifacts with intricate markings suggest they were tracking lunar cycles, seasonal changes, and possibly even calculating migration patterns of animals. These weren't primitive savages stumbling through life. They were brilliant problem solvers with deep knowledge of medicine, ecology, astronomy, and engineering. Here's why this matters to you personally. 99% of human evolutionary history happened during the Paleolithic. Our brains and bodies are still programmed for this lifestyle. We're designed for diverse movement, 8-10 miles of daily walking instead of 8 hours of sitting. Nutritional variety, 20+ plant species per week versus the 4 or 5 most Americans eat. Face-to-face social connection, deep community bonds instead of social media likes. Meaningful work, seeing direct results of our labor instead of abstract productivity metrics. Modern health problems, from obesity to depression to chronic disease, often stem from the mismatch between our Paleolithic bodies and industrial-age lifestyles. But we can learn from their wisdom, prioritizing community, eating diverse whole foods, staying physically active, and maintaining strong social connections. They didn't just survive for 2.6 million years. They thrived, creating art, music, technology, and sophisticated societies. The next time someone calls you a caveman, take it as a compliment. Your ancestors were artists, engineers, botanists, and master survivalists who built the foundation for everything we call civilization. Here's my question for you. If you could bring one Paleolithic skill to your modern office, what would it be? The ability to craft tools in 5 minutes? The knowledge to prepare 20 different meals from wild plants? Or maybe their secret to building communities so strong they lasted hundreds of thousands of years? Drop your answer in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Our next journey takes us even further back to the very origins of human consciousness itself. You won't want to miss what we've discovered about the moment our species first began to think like, well, us. Until next time, keep exploring the deep past, because understanding where we came from is the key to knowing where we're going.